Hey Restorers, welcome to this episode of the Restoration Today podcast. It's a market update episode, so this is hopefully going to be kind of a quick one, and I have a very familiar face with me. You got a wildfire update from him shortly after evacuating with his family from the LA wildfires. I'm joined by Garret Gray, who is the president of Global Insurance Solutions at CoreLogic. He's here with kind of an update on the wildfires and also to talk about INTRConnect, because it did get rescheduled. It is March 23rd through 25th. There's still time to register, and they also have done, like, the content is largely staying the same, but they've also pivoted a little bit because the wildfire topic is so timely and there's so much to talk about in this space. So, Garret, thank you very much for being here. Go
Yeah,
ahead and
thanks.
do a quick intro of yourself for people who don't know you.
Yeah, so my name is Garret Gray. I have grown up in this space.
Mhm.
So I started on the contracting side, working for a small restoration company in Los Angeles, really focused on the business of restoration and how to digitize what was a very paper based process in the past. Started a company, was recently acquired by CoreLogic, and now I'm lucky enough to run all of the global assets for insurance that CoreLogic has, which has been a very fun ride.
I remember back to the paper monster days when that was like
Paper
the
monster.
advertising and marketing that we were
We were,
doing.
we were fighting the paper monster. That was our biggest competition.
And look at how far things have come.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's changed.
Yes. Okay, so the last time you were on the podcast, your family had just had to evacuate from the Palisades kind of area. And I've had actually a lot of people say that they listened to that episode, that your story was crazy. So people who haven't listened to it, go back and listen to that episode, hear Garrett's story of escaping with his family and what that was like. Very harrowing, it sounds like. But give an update. Give us how's your family? Where are things at before we jump into the business stuff?
So we're finally out of a hotel. That's
What?
recently, being in a hotel with three boys
No,
is not the
no.
most fun. I mean, it's great for vacation, but not as like we're going to school, we're doing normal life and trying to manage homework with only one desk. So we're finally out of a hotel. We are in a temporary house. The thing that is really difficult about this whole process is, you feel like you're one of the lucky ones when you have insurance at one. Two, your house is standing in a sea of houses that are not standing. But there's this whole hidden cost to the disaster that we experience, and that's the houses that are standing are still incredibly damaged by soot and smoke and contaminants. And just the process to get contractors even into the area is difficult, just even to get a look. And so it's going to be a slower than normal recovery. And so we're prepared to be out of our house for 6 months to a year, and our house is still standing. And so it's disruptive and it's hard to plan. But again, we're actually on the lucky side of the equation.
That's a positive way of looking at it. And yeah, being out of having kids is a whole different level of handling the logistics. So for sure. Okay. So, the last time you and I spoke, also INTRConnect was still on. So at what point did your team decide, all right, maybe we need to pivot and figure out something else?
And I promise it was not a like, hey, we don't think we're
No.
gonna cancel, but we want to project confidence. Like at that moment, we thought, hey, this is actually going to be a really interesting time because this is going to be a big event that happened, in an area where we're bringing the insurance community together to talk about these sorts of big events. And so at the time, it was thinking like it was just going to really put a great clarifier on a conversation we already wanted to have. The fires were so fast moving, and it just got to a place, essentially the night that after we spoke, where it felt like all of LA was about to burn.
Yes.
Like Sunset Fires is really what sparked this change for us, because it felt unsafe to be in LA for us. I had evacuated outside of LA, and we weren't sure how many hotel rooms were going to be needed for displaced residents. And so we just came to a conclusion that it wasn't safe to bring people that early. And two, we didn't want to take up local resources that might be needed for people who were escaping the fire. So it was an incredibly hard decision to make.
Oh.
Once we made it, I think it's been exciting to see everything kind of fall into place for the new dates.
Yeah, for sure. And all the marketing has been on point. It sounds like everything is going as it should. So that's very good. And there's still time to register for people who are listening.
And a big thank you to our sponsors, who, primarily 99% of them all stayed with us with the new dates. The whole industry, in fact, we're going to have similar attendance to last year's, still maybe even more. So 1,200 to 1,500 people coming together after, the dates moving so dramatically in the last minute. So, really appreciate the support of the industry. And I think it's a real important conversation and really timely, where we come together and kind of chart a new path forward.
So how have you seen the event evolve over the last few years? And what can people expect maybe from this year's event?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really focus on is not just kind of the atmosphere that we're creating so that people are kind of primed to have good collaborative conversations, but that is really intentional for us. We're actually trying to bring the entire industry together, not pit people against each other. And we think there's a role for us to play in building bridges, especially between carriers and the contracting supply chain. They're both such important pieces of our industry, and sometimes there's been some rubbing the wrong way of each other, and we think that there's a way to actually bring those groups together for some win-wins. We also bring together things that you may not normally expect in a contractor or a claims environment, with underwriting and global cat risk, which I think is really interesting for everyone to see how it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
And so because it's all interconnected and because we have such big challenges, our intention is to bring people together to solve those. And so you get to be a part of a group of people who are really charting a new path forward in our space. And so, yeah, this event has evolved in that we have, I think, clarified the content even,
Yep.
each year. Content is a big focus for us. So, some conferences you go to and the content's all very, stale, or maybe you've seen it all before. We're really intentional about making sure the content is really on point. It's relevant, and it's actually driving a conversation that most people should want to be a part of.
Yes. I think for people who are listening, one of the unique parts about Interconnect that I like is how there are different tracks depending on what space you're in. So there's actually stuff, if you're in accounting and restoration, there's actually stuff for you. And if you're in marketing or sales or ops or whatever, ownership, there's all these different places for you to go where you can learn from other people like you. I think that's wonderful because there's not, I don't know any shows in the industry actually that divided out like that.
And it's specific to restoration contractors, and it's because of our history of first only focusing on restoration contractors. And so we had an event that was, good size, but we had a different role for every single, or different track for every single role in a restoration company. We've kept that, even though the event has grown around it. We think it's really important to continue to speak to each different role in a restoration company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So one of the tweaks that you made was, I think, adding in a general session called the Los Angeles Wildfires, the Road to Recovery. And you're going to be part of this session. So give like a little teaser. Obviously, don't give away the meat of it, but give a little teaser for what this session is going to be and what hopefully some of the takeaways will be.
Yeah, so we were like, we had already locked down all of our content especially for my keynote and the main stage stuff. And obviously, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is, everyone is coming to Los Angeles, where we've just experienced one of the largest disasters in U.S. history. $35 billion plus of insured losses, CoreLogic estimates. And so this is a challenge that isn't just how do we get it all back together and how do we bring back even a more resilient community, things that we will talk about. But there's an insurability issue. I'm one of the people who I was 21 days from being dropped by my insurance carrier before the event happened. I was 21 days. If it would have happened on the 22nd days later, I would have had no insurance. And so, thank God that California DOI asked, carriers to give us another year to figure things out. So we, a year before I had to figure this out. But in a year, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get insurance. And the landscape was already difficult, and it's going to get even more difficult. We've got to find a different solution as an industry. This requires not just insurance carriers. There's been a lot we've seen in the media of trying to make the insurance carrier the bad guy. We totally disagree with that. We think that this is a very complex, multi-pronged problem that requires government, insurance carriers, restoration contractors, underwriters, mortgage companies, real estate professionals. Everyone has to come together. And that's what makes CoreLogic so unique to have this conversation, because we play in all those spaces. We don't just play in insurance. We are the largest technology provider for real estate brokers. We are every mortgage that gets serviced in the US is almost all of them are on our platform. And so we sit at a really interesting place to really guide this conversation and really think about the people beyond the buildings, because we need to make sure that we have a resilient and sustainable society, and property is the cornerstone of that. Yeah. And so it's a big challenge, and we're gonna attempt to facilitate the conversations that we need to have to chart that path forward.
Perfect. Okay, and in being in California, I'm curious if you're seeing, which this is a little outside of the INTRConnect conversation, but what you're seeing as far as like sustainability practices in the reconstruction or in the restoration processes. Like, what are some of the things you're seeing? I've heard of people, you have to have your vegetation so many feet away from your property, but then also more resilient materials. So what's happening there that you're seeing or needs to keep happening?
Well, what's interesting is you survey. I was out with my recon team and we were surveying the damage a couple weeks ago, and you see like massive destruction, but then you'll see these random houses that are still like, they look untouched. My house is actually one that looks untouched as well. And you start to look at it and goes, it's not completely random. It looks random, but it's not. You start to look at what was the defensible space around that house. What was the type of roof that they had? Then you can dig in deeper to other building characteristics that, like ember trapping vents. There's, like you said, vegetation close to the house. These are all things that create more combustible materials that, make a house or property more likely to go up in flames. And you can see where people did some really significant mitigation efforts. Sometimes that really protected the house. And so what if everyone was using those mitigation efforts? Would we add conflagration like we did, where once you got to one city block, it just kept going and going and going? Maybe not. And so it's going to prompt a lot of conversations. Our science is going to get refined through this process, because we do a lot of these hazard scores, and so we're going to learn as well as the rest of the industry on how to better look at this on a predicting risk going forward. I do think that there is a tension, though, in terms of getting people back into the community and building and doing it the right way. And I don't know how that's going to play out, because there's a ton of pressure just to say, hey, if you want to rebuild exactly what you had, you can rebuild it as it was, and no, permitting process. That's great from getting people back into their, homes and our communities faster. Yeah. It's not great for actually, changing the outcome of what could happen in another event like this. And so that tension is going to be really interesting, and it's a conversation that we're happy to kind of be a part of and drive forward at INTRConnect.
Okay. All right. Any other sessions or things that you want to highlight, things that you want people to know about that are going to be a big draw for the event?
Yeah, look, I think that I don't care what role you play. There in this industry, like, your voice is really valuable, and to be a part of the group of people who are really trying to figure out how to move things forward. We have almost every top 10 carrier in attendance. We have basically all the major restoration contractors and brands. We have underwriters. We have global cat risk providers. Like, there is a really interesting sets of conversations that people can be a part of, and the content all around is geared to each individual role, like we said earlier, and then it's also geared to have this conversation. And what you're going to see is the way everything is set up. Is it set up to actually physically promote these conversations.
Mhm.
And of course, the bar is where most things happen. So and the bar will be open till, if you went to the first one in LA, our bar closed too early. It's now we're going to stay open as late as possible.
I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about how I'm going to give a shout out to the vendors. Don't miss going to the social hours and going to the receptions. There is so much networking that you're going to miss out on if you don't go to those. So please go to the receptions. A lot of the vendors just don't, and I don't understand that because that's where the work happens.
Honestly, the lobby bar till 2 o'clock in the morning is where it's all going to be.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, Garret, thank you so much. Anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, look, we're excited. Again, we're really thankful that we've had the type of participation we have with a crazy date change like this. Really appreciate everyone's flexibility. Really appreciate you and CNR's support of the event. I think it's a great partnership, and I just feel like the more people can come together to have this really important conversation, the better we're going to have a path forward. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in just a few weeks.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, people who are listening, INTRConnect, it's INTRConnect.CoreLogic.com. Get registered, be there, and I know it's going to be a great show. Garret, thank you so much.
Oh, and one last thing, the air
Yeah.
quality in Los Angeles is great. There's no, it's a normal sunny day. The weather's really good. All that, we have had a lot of rain, so all that stuff that was in the air, weeks ago is not anymore. So it's safe. Come on out and spend some time with us.
Perfect. And it'll be warmer. So people who are like from the Midwest like me, go somewhere warm.
Bring your sunscreen.
Yes. All right, Garret, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.